Aloha Maui. I'm Alaka'i Paleka. Aloha Maui is brought to you by the Hawaii Community Foundation. You can find us on YouTube at Talk Aloha Maui and everywhere that you get your podcasts. We're so fortunate today in that we will be talking with Lahaina folk, Lahaina people that every day move away from the memory of the August 8, 2023 fires, who rebuild, who help others to rebuild and accomplish their dreams. How do we keep Lahaina? Well, I have a couple of Lahaina girls with me in this episode. I have Mikey Burke. Aloha, Mikey.
Aloha.
So you're born and raised in Lahaina.
I am.
And you are very community-minded, I've been told.
Yes.
Before and after the fire.
Yes.
Right? And you are the co-founder of the Lahaina Community Land Trust.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you're the Kamehameha graduate in a room of Lahaina Luna graduates. Does that happen a lot?
Very often, but I try not to show my blue and white colors.
Right? Don't worry, girl. You're in the majority here in this podcast. And then I have Autumn Ness, who is a disaster refugee.
Yeah.
What is that, girl?
I am not a Lahaina of Lahaina,
Okay.
but I moved to Maui after the Japanese tsunami and earthquake and nuclear meltdown, and that kind of informs my whole reason for being involved in the Lahaina Community Land Trust work after the fire.
I was on the radio when that happened. So that's over 10 years.
Yeah, it was in
that you moved,
2011.
right? And it says that you have a wealth of knowledge, experience, and passion for helping the community that you're in.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's true. This place really took me and my daughter. I came here pregnant after the Fukushima explosion. And this community really, really took care of my daughter and I. So I feel a lot of debt to this place. And
Wow.
when the fire happened, I could kind of see the future because I just lived through a mega disaster elsewhere. So I felt really compelled to use that experience to help this community as much as I can.
Yeah. So I don't want to bring any trauma to you. And I heard you're a crier really easily. But you lost your home
I did.
on August 8th,
Yes.
2023. How have you survived till today?
That's a really good question. Sometimes I ask myself that.
Yes.
I think I've survived by putting myself in community. Maybe that's a terrible trauma response.
No, I don't
not
think
facing
so.
not facing my own issues. I'm just going to face community issues.
The
But-
fire didn't happen to just you, it happened to the community.
Exactly. And I try to remind people of that because whenever people speak to me, they always, especially if they didn't lose their home,
Yes.
they always say, "Oh, but it's nothing like you." And I try to remind them that we all lost something that day.
We all lost
Yeah,
something.
I lost a house, but we lost an entire town. And so I wish people would wouldn't make that such a small thing when they're speaking to other fire victims.
Yes. Yes.
We're such a small community that you cannot find somebody in Lahaina that isn't affected by what happened.
Even if their house is standing. Because
Yes.
I was part of the remembrance events. And as you drive into town, you do see a few homes standing.
Yeah.
But it can't be easy for them either to be surrounded by desolation,
Yeah.
and thinking, why me?
Yeah. Or unplaced guilt.
Yes.
Right? Why me?
Yes. Why me?
Yeah. Why
Right.
mine?
Because how are you and your family moving forward? You married? You have children?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 4 very feral boys that I'm trying to raise.
Did you say feral? Well, were you in the Honokahau Valley or something? Where were you?
I think they would love that.
Right?
I think if we left, we live on Komomai Street, and it's a very famous street right now,
Yes, it is
right?
a very famous street.
Because it's one of the newer builds, so everything is up to date. But if they had it their way, they probably would stay out north. We're renting a home right now in Napili-Hau, and they call themselves Nappy Boys. If you know Napili, right? They call themselves Nappy Boys. They ride their bikes till the sun goes down. I've had people tell me that they've seen them down at Napili Bay when they were supposed to be at Napili Park. And so,
Are they like close
they're very
in age,
feral.
your pack?
Yes.
Your pack of feral boys?
Yeah.
Like maybe 1 or 2 years apart?
So I have twins. So
Babes.
My oldest is 14, my twins are 9, and my youngest is 7.
Oh, that's a great group.
Yeah, if you're not raising them.
So, do they inspire you to make Lahaina, the Lahaina of 2024, the Lahaina that you grew up in? Are you inspired by keeping them? You got to know your neighbors.
Yes.
You got to be courteous to all kupuna, not
Yes.
them, no?
Yeah. So my mantra through this whole thing, and people ask me why did I get involved? And my go-to is that Lahaina is the village that raised me, and I want to make sure that I do everything I can to make that village the right village that's raising my children and my grandchildren. So absolutely, this is for them. Do I want the Lahaina that I grew up in? No, I want an even better one. To be honest, the Lahaina that I grew up in was very commercialized, very sensationalized.
Yeah.
And
You're talking about Halloween in the heyday, girl.
Yes.
Where you have strewn bodies all over our yard, just waking up with tire marks on their forehead. It was a great time, though.
But typical Hawaiian style, right? You leave a place better than you found it.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that the Lahaina that we give our children is better than the one that we lost on August 8th.
Autumn, from Fukushima, Japan?
Just north of Fukushima, yes.
Why did you pick Lahaina out of all the places in the world?
Yeah, I don't live in Lahaina. I actually live in Kihei. So I moved here because, first of all, I got pregnant right in the aftermath of the earthquake and the tsunami. So my heart is really with so many of the women I know that got pregnant or had a baby right after the disaster. It's a whole other situation. But when I wouldn't have left, I would have stayed in our community, but it became apparent that being pregnant near a nuclear power plant that was leaking is not a good idea. And I needed to go somewhere where it didn't feel like I wouldn't become like a bitter old woman that I was forced out of my community that I love so much. And I had a really good friend that had come over to Japan to help us that lived on Maui. And she was actually the first person I called. I didn't know what to do with myself. Oh my God, I'm pregnant. Like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I didn't even know how to say it out of my mouth. And I called her and she said, come to Maui. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what the plan is, but come to Maui and we're going to figure this out. And there's a Japanese community that really took me in here. I came here pregnant and, with no idea what was going on. And I ended up in Kihei. And because of that whole situation, and the lessons I learned from that disaster, I became really active in land and water protection and sustainable development and stuff like that. And so I have a community on the West Side, people that I've worked with over a little bit over a decade here, in just like land and water justice issues. So when the fire happened, I was in Kihei and I was monitoring our situation because there was fires over there too, not anywhere near the same scale, and hearing snippets of what was happening in Lahaina. And the thing I worry about for folks here going through this now, especially women who got pregnant or are raising small children in this period, as Lahaina was burning and we started to understand the magnitude of the problem, I realized that I had disaster trauma that was like shoved down in somewhere because I moved away and became a mom and like, don't worry about any of that and just raise your kid, and it doesn't matter. And I'd been ripped away from my whole community, her grandparents and like, you know? And I actually like couldn't function. I had like physical debilitating trauma symptoms. And at the same time, I was thinking, oh my God, this thing that happened to a community that I love so dearly is going to happen again. And what I mean by that is, I say this often, the earthquake and the tsunami were really horrible, but they were also very simple. Like it was very black and white. This thing happened, lots of people died, and lots of things were lost, but it's very concrete. Like, okay, we pick up and we move on. The thing that happened after that was like a secondary, slow-moving disaster that actually, like, the disaster brought what was left of the community together. We saw how that happens. Crisis brings people together. But then as time moved on and we got further and further away from the actual event, the struggles over land and the politics of who gets to decide the rebuild actually ripped the community apart and affected like family threads. And there are people that don't talk to each other anymore. And so all of that stuff, as we're watching Lahaina burn, came flooding back. And I was like, oh my God, this can't happen again to another community that has been so good to me. So, while I'm dealing with my own trauma, I packed my truck, and drove through Lahaina and found some of the folks that I've been working with for years on other issues, namely Kaipo, and found him and hugged him and said, hey, I know you're not ready to hear the things that I have to say because of everything going on around us, but we need to start thinking long-term about what's going to happen to land in Lahaina.
Land in Lahaina.
Because right now, while we're all dealing with loss, people elsewhere are looking at a map and thinking about money and investments, you know? So.
Yeah. Grateful that there were people like Autumn and Carolyn who had the capacity to think like that, because
we didn't.
No, we didn't.
You worried about your family.
Yes. Yeah. You worried about the next 10 minutes, right? You worried about the fact that you don't have any clothes. Like, I don't even have any clean underwear. Like, that's the biggest thing for me to do today is find underwear, not figure out how I'm going to stop investors from coming in and taking advantage of our kupuna. Right. And so when people have the capacity to think like that and hold the space for us until we're ready, that was so invaluable. And, I didn't think that I was going to show up at Napili Noho to get my basic necessities and walk away thinking about a community land trust.
I heard, you know how I get all these little snippets of information. Some are wrong.
This is dangerous. But, what did you hear?
I heard that you were one of the first people to receive a call from predatory investors.
It was my husband.
Okay.
Yes. And it was a cold call, and they knew a lot of information, actually. They knew how much we had left on our mortgage. They knew the size of our lot already. And they said, we're prepared to make you a cash offer right now. And I wish that the call came to me, because I would have strung them along a little bit.
Right.
But, my husband just flew into a rage. And
they knew how much you owed on your house.
They're doing their homework. Like Autumn said, as Lahaina was burning, they got their war maps out and they figured out where they wanted to be in Lahaina.
It's a whole roadmap.
Yeah.
There's a whole roadmap for it. Disaster capitalism, people throw this word around, and I don't understand if they know exactly the depths of it, but it's a whole thing that happens after war, after disaster. Yeah.
Yeah. And what we've learned is they see Lahaina as a clean slate, right? So unfortunately, the areas in Lahaina that we lost were true workforce neighborhoods, right? Lahaina Luna, Wahikuli, Lahaina Maui Komohana, the one of the county workforce housings that was first ones that were built, right, in Lahaina. And so we see them as workforce housing, and the rest of the world, the investors, the real estate agents, they see it as a clean slate. It is no longer a workforce neighborhood. It can be anything they want it to be. And that's the dangerous part.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm mad or sad.
And I want to just expand on what that means.
Please.
Because, for example, the people that are of this place, generations, the Hawaiian people, they understand resource management, for example. They understand the history. They understand where the water flows and where the wind blows and where the fish are,
Yeah.
And what happens when those people are replaced, moved out, and replaced with wealthy people just here that look at this place as a playground? There's no one left to care for those resources. They look at this whole place as an extraction.
Yeah.
So what happened in Japan, in a lot of areas, the old fishing families in villages where nobody ever applied for a job. Like, you grew up and you worked for the family on the fishing boats, and they also understood like how much to fish, what areas to fish when, because they want their grandkids to be able to fish, right? Well, when the infrastructure was disappeared and people couldn't figure out if they could rebuild and all that stuff, people started selling. And you know who bought it up? Fishing conglomerates. And they don't care about whether their grandkids can fish or not. They care about making their quarterly sales goals. And then when they're done, they go somewhere else. So it's not just about the people. It's about what happens to the environment when you displace the people that care for that place. It's just like this that I never thought about when the tsunami hit Japan.
Right.
We didn't have the capacity or the eyes to see that slow-moving disaster. But here, if you think what 10 years down the line is going to look like,
So how do we keep Lahaina as we rebuild, ladies and gentlemen? We have the Lahaina Community Land Trust, and they have made their first acquisition from the emotions that are being felt right here, right now. Someone will come and tell me about Lahaina Land Trust because, I'm mad right now. Inside, I'm a little mad, but I'm going to wait until we talk about Lahaina Land Trust, Lahaina Community Land Trust. But now we know why.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're mad. We should all be mad. We should all be mad.
Right. But thank you for giving us the background on why. And we shall return to Aloha Maui, brought to you by Hawaii Community Foundation. Aloha Maui, brought to you by Hawaii Community Foundation. Mahalo, Mikey, for sharing your story. Fire happens August 8, 2023 in Kula Kihei and Lahaina. Soon thereafter, predatory investors call your home and know how much you owe on your house, and they're willing to give you a cash offer for your workforce. It's a workforce area, right? And then we have the Lahaina Community Land Trust. Can you tell me how we got from the predatory phone call to the Lahaina Community Land Trust?
From my perspective, I can tell you, I showed up at Napili Noho one day to get supplies. At this point, we were staying in the Red Cross shelter, and I thought I was coming to get toothpaste and shampoo and probably more underwear. And I see Carolyn, and she's got her vest on. If you ever been to Napili Noho, you know what vest I'm talking about.
Carolyn has a presence.
Yes,
Carolyn has a presence. She's an organizer. We're going to direct some traffic here, baby.
Yep. Yeah. And so she checked in with me, asked how my ohana was doing, what I needed. And then she came back and said, by the way, do you have a moment? I want to talk to you about this idea we've been kicking around. And she hands me this white paper. And it's got all this information about a community land trust, how it's formed, what it's about, what it could potentially do. And she says, go home and read this. Don't read this now, but we're thinking that a community land trust is something that we can stand up here in Lahaina to protect all of the families here that might have to make a decision to move away or not. And I said, oh my gosh. I was thinking that in the million things that we had to do, I was thinking, what's going to happen to our Lahaina? What's going to happen to our people? Thank God you're thinking about this. And I went back to the hotel. I read through the white paper. And I said, however I can help, I will help. And, those are famous last words.
Right.
If you don't really want to help, you don't utter those words. Because it started as, I will share this message to, we need you to be a part of this. And Carolyn has a very good way of telling you what you're going to do.
Without ordering you
Yes. And then you think, I'm going to do this. And
strongly suggesting.
yes. Yeah.
Wow. And we have a young man here. His name is Kaipo. And you have some input in how we put together this Lahaina Community Land Trust?
I wouldn't say so much of that, but I would say, I think, instinctively, we knew the people that helped us organize this and bring it together. And when it was just three of us in the very beginning, we knew that we were all very familiar with one thing. We responding to a disaster. None of us had any of that kind of experience at all, but
right.
Being there for our community, caring for our community, serving our community, that's things that we do. And
always.
It's kind of just, that's what we're brought up with. So I think we naturally just gravitated to that concept, and we knew that we found where we could serve and how we could best serve our community and what would be the best efforts that we could make. And we came up with this and we moved forward with that.
I see that everybody has their own talents, though. And Carolyn, we're saving you for the end, girl. What is your talent, Kaipo? Tell us. Come on. You know it. Tell it. Because, for us to be an army, everybody got to do one job and do it well.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
You sure? I'm going to ask Carolyn.
Yeah.
He's the visionary.
He
Okay.
is. He sees the potential. He knows very well the past, and he sees what can be. And he's very articulate about that. And he loves. He comes from a place of love with all that he does for this community. And I think that's a powerful talent.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Kaipo is an old soul.
Yeah.
And kolohe soul, but a very old soul. And I can say that because we grew up with each other.
We knew each other,
yes,
right?
we knew each other. Mm-hmm. And he spent a lot of his time listening to the stories of the kupuna in Lahaina and making connections with all the old families. And so when you look at somebody like him, his superpower is the fact that he understood the value of mo'oku auhau, of a place, of people, of a community, and he memorized that and took it to heart. And so when Kaipo speaks for Lahaina, he does it because he has the stories of the kupuna behind him. He put in the time and the work to understand his community so that when this day came, he was prepared to be the voice for Lahaina.
And he didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know it.
He's very blessed he's had fantastic mentors and people that have taken the time to teach, and he's been a very receptive student. So, we're fortunate that he's like that repository, and it's in a person who just is very selfless. That's very much him.
So Kaipo, now that you know what is your superpower, what do you envision Lahaina to be? Like, I asked her if she wanted Lahaina to stay Lahaina, and Mikey said she wanted a better one. So what do you see in Lahaina's future now that we have all this trauma and we're growing and we're choosing how we build Lahaina. And when I say our Lahaina, I lived there, sometime, but my career grew out of Lahaina. KPOA was in the beautiful downtown Kobatake building
Yes.
between Burger King and Burger Queen. Had Hamburger Mary's on the corner. So I owe a lot.
Showing some of the age.
Right? Showing the age. I owe a lot to Lahaina because my career has been awesome. What a ride. I mean, I wasn't in the sun, digging ditches. I was like at festivals and ho'olauleas and just being a part of the community. So I am so joyful and thankful to Lahaina for my career. But for you, as you help to kako'o uplift this community, you have choices and you have the power to create a better Lahaina. You have Mikey, you have Carolyn, who's going to be the strategist and make things happen. But what do you see in our future for Lahaina?
I would like to see, some of that warmth, comfort,
Yes.
security.
Yes.
When you speak of like the ho'olauleas and when Front Street had a space for us as a part of our identity as a community, from me as a young kid, the mango stand, when Kamehameha Day parades were a little bit more revered, in
Yes.
town. They were honored at a different perspective, and the community was happy to be engaged on a place where we don't have to struggle to exist. I would love to see Lahaina meet. That's what Lahaina, kamalu ulu olele, right? Like that's what we were. And we can go back.
We can.
And we don't have to be afraid of that either. It's not that we are looking to push us to where some people consider a impoverished lifestyle. It's just more where it's us in the decisions to be made about our space. We have a spot there. That's what I hope to see Lahaina come forward to. There's a bunch of details and all of that of how we can
Right.
accomplish that and what that looks like. But like my sister said earlier, how long is this? There's a lot of examples out there of great places for community and how they are empowered to have a space to contribute to their identity as a location, as a town, as a community. And I think for a long time now, Lahaina didn't have that.
I'm going to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because, usually which your neighbors who, if a disaster happens, you got to go get Auntie because Auntie is in a wheelchair or Auntie on a walker. And you knew. You probably could go into all of Lahaina town and take care of everybody, babes. Yeah.
I think the last mom and pop we had prior to the fire was like Nagasakos,
Right.
That's the
right.
last one we had.
Yeah.
And so that kind of says a lot about where we are as a community in our own town.
And maybe we cannot make the mom and pop businesses, but we sure can talk story and care about each other, Not be maha'oi,
Yeah.
but at least care about each other. Carolyn, we saved you for last, girl, because you're the brains of the operation.
Oh
I
boy.
thought you were a lawyer, but she told me she's a range scientist. Is that true? But you're the everyday operations in the Lahaina Community Land Trust. So what are the strategies, priorities that I don't understand? I thought land trust was we're going to buy your land and hold on for the community. What is it? What are we trying to do? We don't want the predators to come in and buy the lands.
Right.
So what do we want to do with Lahaina Community Land Trust?
Thank you for the compliment. Kind of makes me scared. There's a lot of great brains on this team. I'm just going to say that, and I'm fortunate to be a part of it. But the goal for the Community Land Trust is to secure properties and take it out of the speculative market forever, in order to put it into community ownership, where the community decides what's the best use for that aina. So we unlike a lot of land trusts, sometimes, especially in Hawaii, the experience has been most land trusts tend to have more of a conservation focus, where they're preserving open spaces and keeping lands in more of a natural state, and that's super important work. But our community land trust is really structured as more of a hybrid land trust, and there's great examples of community land trusts all across the country that we've really taken a lot of cues from, some that have been born in the wake of a disaster. Our community land trust is a hybrid where we are focused on Lahaina, and we have programs for affordable housing, for conservation of lands that are important and need to be protected and stewarded in a certain way because of either cultural value or environmental reasons, as well as we have potential for even having commercial properties in our portfolio if and when the opportunity is right, in order that we could make those properties available to local community businesses like the mom and pops that I believe we could see a second generation of coming back. So we are just of the community and for the community, and we know intimately the challenges, the special places, the values of this community. And so it just, in the wake of the fire and in the face of what we knew could happen, and also because of what we've seen happening for decades now, of our neighbors, myself, not being able to afford to stay home.
Yes.
Tired of it. You know?
Thank you.
Not for ready.
Thank you for saying that with tears in your eyes. Thank you. I thought I was the only mad one in the previous section.
I'm mad.
Lot of woosahs.
And upset.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair that people that this has been home for, the keiki of these lands, that they have to make that difficult choice to leave, and they don't want to.
They do not want to.
That's not fair. Families that have been a part of this community for generations, from our generational families that go back, even pre-contact, to the families that are part of our community now that came with the era of the plantation. We're all products of all of that, and they're all a part of our community today. And yet it is such a struggle to exist in our own town. And it's not fair. We're up against impossible economic pressure and an inelastic demand for a piece of paradise that is impossible to push back against when you're trying to work in this community. We have folks that are teachers, that are in health industry, that are in other service roles. Folks like myself, I was working in agriculture. When the price of living, the cost of living becomes so out of reach, how do we expect to even continue to function as a society? And so if we can't have folks that are of a diverse economic environment and diversity in roles, we can't afford to just keep hiking up the minimum wage. That's not actually the solution. We have to get some kind of control over the out of control land value that Lahaina and lots of parts of Hawaii have been experiencing because it is so desirable.
So how does the Lahaina Community Land Trust help the longtime generational resident afford or live on land? Maybe they don't, how does the trust accomplish this?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. So first of all, right now, where we find ourselves post-fire, our first goal is to help any Lahaina landowners, homeowners that are struggling to figure out how they're going to rebuild. Our first goal is to try to keep them home. We don't want people selling because of desperation, because they feel like there's just no way. So that's our first goal. And we've got an insurance gap program that we're putting together with great support from the county and our partners at Hawaii Community Lending to try to help fill the insurance gap for as many families as we can if that's the problem. Second to that, for folks that maybe they choose to sell because it's too traumatic, or we have some families that bought land, moved here from the mainland, and maybe are feeling like their time here is done and they want to move back, or maybe even some investors that bought a property and maybe it was a short-term rental and it can't be anymore, right? So we're an opportunity, we're an option for folks that decide to sell and want to, that agree that what's been happening in Lahaina is wrong, that the continual inflation of land values, that they want to contribute to keep preserving the character of Lahaina, they can sell to the land trust. We want to purchase property, and the land trust will own the land in perpetuity. We'll build a house on it, and we'll offer that house for sale to longtime Lahaina residents. We're developing a type of lottery system where folks that sign up to that they're eligible and they want to try to acquire a home on land trust land, they can buy the home, but the land stays in the ownership of the trust. So we remove the cost of the land from the equation, and we can make these homes available at an affordable price, and the homeowner still gets to grow some equity, but it'll be a controlled growth. If they ever choose to resell the home, it'll be done with a resale formula that's used again in community land trusts across the country, where affordable housing is a part of their goal. Our whole idea is to make sure that there's home ownership options in Lahaina that are affordable and attainable by the folks that live and work in our community, the folks that make up our community. So that's how that part of our program kind of would work. We also are also working on other creative ideas to help incentivize folks that already own their land, like Mikey, or like my dad. Like they don't ever intend to sell, probably, right? She was building a home for her kids and her grandkids, right? So for folks that are in that kind of a position, we're also trying to develop what we're calling our kama'aina easement. And what a kama'aina easement is we'd pay a price to a landowner already to say, will you stand with us and commit your land to always be occupied full-time by a Lahaina community member? And if they want to make that commitment to their community, we want to help by giving them a little incentive, and they will record a deed restriction on their aina that'll be forever, that the land trust will manage and will track to make sure that if ever a future generation, for whatever reason, decides to sell, that they're committed to sell it to another Lahaina community member, using our same programs that we're developing in order to define what that looks like, and possible affordable housing calculations and stuff. But it's really radical to some people, but not to people that really love this place, not to people that understand the value.
Difference, because there are going to be some people that sell to the highest bidder. I'm so sorry.
We're seeing that.
I'm so
already.
sorry.
Yeah,
we know.
But maybe just knowing that this is available, and that it's not like, oh, I'm going to sell my land for cheap, and then you guys going to sell them for plenty.
No way.
We're not ever selling.
Never.
That's what Lahaina Community Land Trust is all about. What I got.
Yep.
We're not
forever.
selling.
And when you remove the land in the component of walking into the bank and getting a mortgage, you actually make the home price attainable to a local family. The median home price right now for Maui is over $1 million. I don't know how many local people can walk into a bank right now and get a mortgage for $1 million plus. I couldn't, and I have a very good job. My husband has a very good job, and we still would have a hard time getting that mortgage. But when you remove the price of that land because the land trust owns it, now you only have to walk into the bank and qualify for maybe $500,000. And we can do that. Our local people can do that. And so you give them the opportunity to become homeowners because you've removed a large piece of what holds them back. Right. Yeah. And a lot of the pushback we get at the land trust is, well, owning aina is what creates generational wealth. And the pushback that we give is, by whose definition? What is generational wealth to you is not generational wealth to me. The vai of our aina here is the fact that we can keep our kids on our aina, right?
That would equate to like money. You're just owning this land so you can eventually sell.
Correct.
It would be that
Yeah.
person's
Real estate
idea.
builds generational wealth because you can sell it off and you can take that money
generational
and buy
wealth.
another piece of real estate and hike up the price and sell that off, and that's how you create the wealth for your family. But in Lahaina, what is wealth to us is the fact that we can stay here and we can
Yes.
raise our kids here, and we can know the guy at the poke counter. We can know the person who's cutting our hair. We can sit with kupuna. And the vai of that, of owning or having a mortgage on a home that's $500,000 versus $1 million+ is the fact that now Kaipo doesn't have to work 3 jobs. Kaipo can maybe work 1 job, and now he can go and teach paddling to his children, or, start a program to help kids learn about all the limo that used to be in our ocean but is not here anymore. It gives time freedom to our community, right? That's the generational wealth that we're looking at, to have your parents home to be able to raise you, because they're not working 4 or 5 jobs just to try to pay the rent or the
Right.
mortgage on this overpriced home.
Yeah.
So Lahaina Community Land Trust would obtain land that we would let people build homes on. They wouldn't own the land. You wouldn't own the land because it never. Can you imagine a Lahaina that never gets sold?
Right? Right?
I-
That's what we're saying.
What?
Like, or it does get sold. It changes hands, but it's all within the community, and it's no
nobody
more,
owns
no more
it.
luxury second homes, no more short-term rental, no more risk of that things, because we're no longer looking to the government to just make the solution. We are creating the solution.
I feel
The
like a
community
light
is
bulb
creating
went
the
off.
solution.
I hope you buy all this land and it's never ever sold again. You can
Amen.
sell your house.
What's our 1-year goal or our budget? 10 years?
10
Our
years.
10 years.
20%.
We do. We did
Housing stuff.
a big strategic planning session, and we really kind of did some number crunching and looking at everything. And in post-disaster situations like this, it's estimated that up to 20% of the real estate in Lahaina could change hands in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
We've made it our goal that in the next 10 years or sooner,
Yeah.
that we would touch and protect 20% of the homes in Lahaina, either through direct ownership and selling the home on top to a homeowner, or through the Kama'aina easement program or something similar. Our hope is to protect 20% of the housing inventory for Lahaina community members. Our goal is to keep those families back in Lahaina. We want Lahaina to be rebuilt and still be home to those same folks. It breaks our heart to hear how many people have left. I left for 27 years because I couldn't afford to live here, and my job wasn't here. I didn't have any opportunity in agriculture in West Maui anymore, so I left for 27 years and
Wow.
came home to do this and to hopefully help bring agriculture, diversified ag back.
Because you're a range scientist.
Because I'm a grass girl, yes.
I know people right now in Lahaina. Okay, I think this scenario works. That should give you their land,
And we could lease it right back to them.
and you could lease it back to them.
100%.
Because they only got to pay for the house.
And
Yes.
generational.
Yes.
It can even
I
be
know
generational.
people that got burnt to the ground, and they should give you their land
talk
that
story.
will never ever be sold.
Yes.
Yes.
Never.
And they can just buy one house to put on top.
Yes.
I'm giving names.
And they can
Giving
lease that.
names,
They can lease
people.
that for 99 years, and so that they can, give it to their children and their grandchildren.
And they don't have to ever be afraid that there will be a fight in the family and somebody going to sell them and they're going to lose the land.
Right.
I know family members that's happening to right now.
Yes.
The
yes.
son, the wife swindled the family out of the land.
Yeah.
And now they're divorcing and the family's losing the land. That's criminal to me. There's something like this will ensure stuff like that never
It's criminal.
happens.
Yeah.
It'll ensure that the enticement of money will never be an allure because that land is not available. And so we would love to talk story with anybody that would like to explore what this could look like. We're really like no pressure. We don't try to. We're never going to guilt trip someone into doing this.
Right.
But we really want
Right.
people to ask themselves about what is important, and they can just check for themselves. If they have a value, it's not a guilt trip. It's a kuleana. If they feel the same as we do, then maybe they'll feel that it's their calling that this is the better path for their family.
Don't sell out, sell in.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we have a lofty goal, so 20%, but that goal comes with a very big price tag if we have to pay for everything at the appraised value,
Yes.
right? So our goal is
Yes.
like we have a $400 million fundraising goal. I'm just going to put it out there. It's lofty, we know, but it's also not impossible. Because
It's
if you
not
start
impossible.
looking at what the county and the state spend on things like parking lots, $400 million is not even a big number.
Right.
And what we're finding right now with the real estate and what's beginning to happen in Lahaina is some folks are deciding to sell. We're grateful for the Kimball family that chose to sell to us.
I
We're
heard you did
grateful.
have one property. I
We
heard
do
you
have
have
one.
a property.
We're under contract to purchase, and we are so overwhelmed
That's
and
awesome.
happy. Like these guys, they know what a land trust is. They wanted their land to go back to the community. I believe the quote is, "It never really belonged to us anyway." They recognize that there's a difference, and that you don't really ever own land. They get it. So that's happening. But we also made 3 offers that got turned down. And it's frustrating because we're seeing properties that are being listed right now
Yeah.
for $200,000 over the 2023 appraised value.
On international markets.
And if you go into the bank and you want to buy some land and you're going to try to get a loan, you can only borrow money for up to the appraised value. But if the price is listed $200,000 over, who is that being marketed to? Only people with capital, strike
Right.
capital, cash, right? Is that any Lahaina members, any community people, any local people anywhere? Probably if there is, they're a real small number.
Where are you?
Where are you? Yeah. Please
Kaipo.
buy this before somebody else
Please.
does.
You're being really quiet over there.
Sorry, I've been hogging
No,
the mic.
no. And I understand he's the visionary, but I can see the dynamics. You, the idea guy. Yeah. So I want to know, can this concept work?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
This Lahaina Community Land Trust, can it work? Because we have go-go girls over here, but I want to know from you.
Yeah.
What
without a
gives you
doubt.
hope that it's going to work?
Shucks, look where we at. I mean, it's been a year
It's been a year.
and we already have our first property. We have buy-in from our county at a pretty considerable level. They appreciate and value it. We've done numerous outreaches to our community and got only positive feedback. I can't even, the resources that we've accumulated across the country, if you will, from indigenous tribes, from trusts built out of disasters, our own local state trusts that are making the same type of efforts in their own different community corners. It's all out there.
Yeah.
Getting the community to see, getting all of these other, outside investors aware of who we are and know that we are here to put up the fight against that system.
Yeah.
It's already happening, we're doing it. So it's not a question of if, it's just when it happens. And then we'll know how big we can go.
Yeah.
But right now we're going to keep going.
There's so many examples of successful community land trusts across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this isn't even a new idea in Hawaii.
It's not?
Oh no, Auntie. No. Our kupuna thought like this too.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah.
thought like this too.
Our
And I
kupuna.
believe it's the Wainiha hui was one of the first land huis where families put their resources together to buy the land back when the sugarcane companies were taking it all. I believe that was an example on Kauai, and there's others. So this isn't a new idea, and it's just taking a new shape for the time that we're in. We got some different nuances because of the legal frameworks that we have today that were different then.
Yes.
But it's not a new concept.
Wow. Lahaina Community Land Trust.org. I have a yes or no question for you, Mikey. With this Lahaina Community Land Trust, do you believe that in the future your 4 young men will be able to own homes? Maybe not the land underneath because it'll be owned by the community. Do you believe that your 4 sons will be able to have homes and stay in Lahaina?
Absolutely, yes. And whichever son gives me a granddaughter, he can have my house, but the rest can go get land trust homes.
First granddaughter. You heard it here. So many awesome ideas. Aloha Maui brought to you by Hawaii Community Foundation. I'm Alaka'i Paleka. You can find this and many episodes on YouTube at Talk Aloha Maui or anywhere podcasts are available. Mahalo, you guys. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And thank you very, very much, Kaipo and Mikey. What awesome stories you shared today. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Aloha Maui is brought to you by Hawaii Community Foundation. Aloha Maui, aloha world. I am Alaka'i Paleka. I am a child of grace, and I choose grace at this moment as we move on, keeping Lahaina. How do we accomplish this? Well, we have a couple of community leaders with us this very day. Tamara Paltin, you are the councilwoman for Lahaina. What is the actual district? Lahaina, Ka'anapali?
It's basically called West Maui. Yeah.
Weren't you a county like lifeguard or in the Parks and Recreation department when you actually ran the first time?
Yeah. I was a ocean safety officer
There you
for
go.
almost 20 years, a lieutenant at DT Fleming's Beach
Right?
Park. Yeah.
And you said, I need to fix my Lahaina.
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat, and you ran. I remember. I was
Yeah.
still on the radio when you ran. And what committees do you sit on now?
All except for the ADEPT committee, and I chair the Disaster Resilience International Affairs and Planning Committee.
Was that before the fire or after the fire?
It just started at the start of this term, so the beginning of 2023. And I'm the vice chair to Nohe's committee, the Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Committee, and she's the vice chair to my committee.
Okay, so we have two of Maui's leaders. You're one of the newer, younger council members, aren't you?
I am. This is my very first term. What a term to be
Indeed, and you're doing well.
Oh, thank you.
It has nothing to do with the fact that she's also a Kuau chick from 96779.
That's right.
Happen to know that personally. It is a proud moment to have you with us.
Thank
today.
you, Auntie. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Tamara, can you share with us a little bit about how your kuleana has changed post-fire?
Sure. I was at home on the 8th because there wasn't any power, and people started to come into my neighborhood around 4 o'clock and mention that their houses were burnt down and things like that. And so that first night was kind of a sleepless night. People were coming into the neighborhood just saying, oh, Lahaina is gone, everything is gone. A lot of just kind of unconfirmed stuff. People said that Safeway was gone, but it was still there, and things like that, just because people were fleeing for their lives, And then within the next couple of days, my neighbors and I, we just decided we have the park, Napili Park, right above of us, and so that's an obvious place to start up a hub, And so I talked with my one neighbor, Kaipo, Kekona, and he said he had a lot of supplies at his farm, but we weren't sure if we would be able to get there from Napili. It was just off Lahaina Luna Road. And so I said, well, I got my council badge. Let's try, And some family members had escaped out to our house, and they wanted to go back and check what was left of their house. And so they found out that their houses were still standing. And I asked them, like, how did you get through all the blockades? And they're like, oh, the red gate at Hanaka'o is not locked. So, we're driving down the highway and we see people getting turned around at Ka'anapali. And I'm like, oh, go down by the hotels. And as we were driving past, we seen like the huge buses just loading up, like tourists were in a long line with all their luggage, and they were being bussed out of West Maui because, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have internet, we didn't have telephone, no gas stations were working, nothing was working. And a lot of the roads were closed. So we just went driving by like, doo, 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 don't look at us.
Because you know where the red gates stay, that's why.
Yeah.
Other people don't know.
Yeah. So we went through, we got to the farm, we loaded up all kind of tents, tables, chairs, and things like that. When we got to Napili, as soon as we set up the first tent, like this big dumpster truck came with like bags and bags of garbage bags. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh no, not the clothes, because from 2018, the clothes just got kind of out of hand. It was like mountains and mountains of clothes. But, everybody lost everything. So that first truckloads of clothes really did come in clutch for a lot of people. And, there was just so much going on, so much people in our own neighborhood, like stepping up and things like that. And then I was able to make contact with a couple of nonprofit organizations, Red Lightning and All Hands and Hearts. Red Lightning is kind of a gap disaster organization that's actually the CEO lives in Kihei. And they got hundreds of Starlinks. And
Right.
the CEO kind of let me and my team of people choose where they were going to be installed. So we started going to like the big apartment complexes in Honokowai area and up towards Napili that were still standing, so that people could call friends and family and just let them know that they were okay.
You're okay.
So for a few days, I was like riding around with them, like, oh, go here, because never have GPS or anything, internet.
Right.
And then there were some rumors and fears of looting, and they happened to be driving a big black Suburban, so we'd pull up to certain locations and people would come out like, who are you? What do you want? I'm like, oh, they got internet.
Right.
They got internet.
Sorry.
And they're like, oh, how much? And I'm like, no, this is disaster services. It's free.
Right.
You cannot stream games or anything, but emails, telephone, text can.
Nice.
And so we were just like, whatever came up every day, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow.
It doesn't. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's whatever need is supplied that day. So, Noe, you're not even close to Lahaina. You live far away.
I do. I live in Olinda,
Yeah.
where the fires actually started that day.
Right?
Yeah.
And you are okay.
I'm okay. Thankfully, I live lower Olinda, but I did start out my morning by evacuating my house as well.
Yes.
And going down to Paia and finding a place that was not on fire.
So just knowing that feeling of being evacuated, has that inspired what you do today for Maui? Does your office allow you to help Lahaina?
Yeah, Tam and I actually make a pretty good team, I think, if I don't say so myself.
Okay. Nurturing women of Maui.
Yes. She's extremely empathetic. So the Lahaina community is so lucky to have her. They're really, really lucky. And of course, she's like super boots on the ground and not afraid to get dirty. So that also helps them as well. But after watching Lahaina, and I think we haven't had a council meeting where it's not emotional, I took it upon myself, and I hope other people do this as well. I kind of try to figure out how to make Paia as fire safe as we can. As we were discussing earlier, Paia is kind of like a mini Lahaina. Unfortunately, but fortunately, my last job was doing building permits and workforce housing.
Oh, that's right.
And so right now in this space, I get to hopefully help Lahaina families and its long-term residents to build back easier and faster. And I think our council has tried to do our best in that, in ensuring that the local community don't face the challenges that we've known we have in building back. And so they can go home sooner than later, and they don't get those predatory calls.
And we want to make sure that they're building safely too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's been an interesting point in policy where we're going to need to pivot, as we discussed earlier, and how we can build back a very similar Lahaina, but a safer Lahaina.
Yes.
And one I think that represents the local community a little bit better.
Wow. So you guys work together. Thank
We
you,
do.
ladies, nurturing women.
Thank you.
So when people have a need, how do they contact your office, or do they call you at all? Like, I need
You can
this or
answer
I
that
need
first and then I
that.
can go.
Tamara?
A lot of people messenger me on social media, which I prefer email because then I have help.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if we're friends, then I can see the messages and things like that. Sometimes I've seen messages from people that I'm not social media friends with, but it doesn't really pop up on my feed, so I have to do a little extra work. But to me, email works best because there's a written record, and I can ask my staff to help me like look into things and like that. But I immediately after the fire, and even after we restored telephone, internet, and communications, one of the biggest complaints was like, we don't know what's going on, or
That's true.
we just don't know, so I hated doing lives, that's never something that I wanted to do. And it's like the only way that I knew of to be able to like be a conduit of information, and a lot of people seemed to like it, and I'm like, oh great, now I gotta keep doing it. And just this last remembrance event, I met family members of kupuna that live in Oregon, New Jersey, all over the continent. We're so thankful because maybe their kupuna don't watch it, but they watch it, and then they can inform their kupuna
And
of
they
like
communicate,
stuff
yeah?
and
They
like
tell
that.
story.
Yeah. So it's been that, like, any kind of information I get, sometimes I don't even read it. I just screenshot and post, and then if it's something like wow, then people will feedback. I'm like, oh, I better read that.
Right. Nice. Nohe,
Yes.
how do Maui residents best engage with the county? Like, how should they call you? Should they write you? Is there a website that people can go to?
Yes.
Because these issues, the county should be open to all issues.
Yes, and we are. I think we try our best to be. Probably the most impactful way they can get involved is to testify. We have committee meetings, we have council meetings. It is the most efficient way to make an impactful statement to all 9 members. But I do know that getting up to testify in front of people and talking in front of people is extremely uncomfortable for a lot of local people. And we do hear from, probably the same people a lot of times, and we appreciate everybody's opinion. But I
That's
think
very well said.
I think as we rebuild Lahaina, we have to recognize a lot of the local community don't feel comfortable coming in front of us. So to Tam's point, like, email us anytime you want. Call my office,
You have
message
people,
me on
right?
safety.
You have
We all have
people.
people. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
people. We have social media. We have a website. But you can also e-comment testimony. You can write to all 9 of us so that, your information and your stories, everybody's stories, can help make us the best decision we can for everybody.
Thank you for taking care of my Maui. Yes, Tamara?
And, for the rebuild and recovery of Lahaina, the county has the MauiRecovers.org website. So all kind of information to from debris removal, the closeout package, the expedited permitting process. All of that is on the Maui Recovers site. They have recordings of webinars for homeowner rebuilds and stuff like that. It's a wealth of information, but I think also a lot of people that been traumatized,
Yes.
you need to tell them the information. So
Yeah.
I find myself going to every single meeting that I can fit into my schedule,
Yes.
so that when people ask questions, hopefully I heard it at a meeting, that's part of the expanded kuleana though, I guess. Every Wednesday night community meeting, 6 Mill Camp focus group community meeting. The next request was Fleming and Malo Road are getting sewer, and one of our residents said, you know, these was old houses filled with old people. We cannot do that kind of website stuff, you know? So it's like, we gotta kind of, you know, hold their hand through the process.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We will.
Nobody,
we will.
I mean, not nobody, but most of our families never built their own houses. You know,
Right.
either they inherited it or purchased it. And so this is all new for everybody. And we have one resident, the Milneys, they had just kind of finished building their house and it burnt down. And they really serve kind of as an inspiration to a lot of people. Like, they just got their siding up the other day, and I was like, them too, they were on the mainland for a little while, and they said, oh, your updates helped us to get where we're at. And I'm like, okay, I hope, you know, when you finish your rebuild, you help all your neighbors rebuild so you can have them, you know, surrounding you too. So
thank you, ladies.
fingers crossed.
Yes. And thank you, ladies, because,
Thank
you know,
you.
I had to choose Grace. I was a little upset
Yeah.
earlier in this episode, but thank you.
Thank you.
There's hope and promise and grace at Aloha Maui, brought to you by Hawaii Community Foundation. You can find us on YouTube at Talk Aloha Maui. Please make sure your whole family subscribes, or anywhere podcasts are available. Aloha Maui, aloha world. Mahalo for joining us.